Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mansfield Buzz.
Welcome to Mansfield Buzz with Jordan and Hurdy. Local business stories, let's dive in early. Jordan asks the questions, brings stories to light. Hurdy runs a tech, keeps production tight. Build trust in a town, discover and explore hidden gems and stores you never heard before. Community connection, that's what we're about. Tune in, join us, see what Mansfield's all about.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Mansfield Buzz. That's what Mansfield's all about as it fades out. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan's our creative side of this stream. Well, it's Thursday. It's 2 o'clock. We are here every Thursday covering the Mansfield business. And if you guys haven't ever listened to a show, you're here to join us today. Make sure you go down, hit the little thumbs up button. You can chat with us and do comments. We'll answer questions. We have Darren Gomez with us from Koala Insulation. We're going to talk to him today about your home, which is going to be really cool. But we want to welcome everybody. Yes, it's Thursday. It's 2 p.m. And before the show started today, we got into a big discussion on favorite root beer. So over in the comment thing, if you want to during the show, tell us your favorite root beer drink if you want to, and we'll put it up there. So we just got into a big discussion about it, which is really kind of funny. All right, guys. So you can also realize our hosts are Jordan Huff, Hurdy Burke. We're here every Thursday. Jordan, it's now a year and 3 months, and we've literally, between you on vacation and me going, I think we've probably totally missed 2 shows, maybe. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the rest of the time we're here on Thursday. So it's really been cool. Guys, if you want to check us out and go subscribe, we would love for you to go at Mansfield TX Buzz. Just go look us up on YouTube. Send the link to 5 friends, please. We're trying to get 200 subscribers by the end of July. I think we're going to be close. We're at 175 right now. We're averaging a little over 3,000 views every 28 days, 31 to 40. I think the record amount of watch time hours is 50. We're around 35 right now, going on 40, which is really cool. So we're excited about the people paying attention to the channel in the local area. And understand we're a local YouTube channel. So what makes that really cool is that we're not trying to publish it out to the whole world. Yes, if you want to watch it from somewhere, great, but we're trying to cover our local business. So if you need to send us or join our show, number one, you can find me at all the Mansfield Network groups, so that's no big deal. And you know what, Jordan, I didn't put my email in here, which is cool, but I don't want to give them Hurdy at hurdyburke.com today. We want to give them hurdy.burke@gmail.com. That's Hurdy, HURDIE.Burke, BURK @gmail.com. And then, Jordan, we are ready for our icebreaker segment, and we'll be right back. Hey, did I mention to you guys we have a sponsor? Of course we do. Liberty Tax Defenders. That's right. They've been a sponsor with us for quite a while, and they are here to save the day. I don't know, Darren, or if anybody in this group has ever gotten a letter from the IRS, but the best thing to do is not put it in a drawer. We are Liberty Tax Defenders, your premier tax resolution firm. We work every day to help hardworking Americans keep more of their money out of the hands of overzealous bureaucrats. We help our clients solve problems with back taxes, unfiled tax returns, payroll, and trust fund issues. We also negotiate payment plans and offers in compromise that are favorable to our clients, as well as represent clients who are under audit before the IRS. In addition, we help clients navigate tax issues such as employment retention credit, as well as providing CFO consulting, tax preparation, accounting services. They successfully helped our clients save over $1 million. That's now $2 million, assessed in taxes penalties. Call them if you need to reach them, 817-995-5008, or go visit the website, which will be in the link below after the show, libertytaxdefenders.com. And I'll tell you what, if you don't mind, we're going to play a quick 33-second video. Then we're going to jump in with Darren. from Koala Insulation and have a great discussion about how he can really help your home. We'll be right
I
back.
don't agree with the IRS's position. What are my options?
Well, you can tell them to pound sand,
I love it.
which so few people do this. Don't just agree. They're wrong so often. You have rights. You can appeal it. The appeal must be made within 30 days of the date that the IRS has made a determination. You file a formal notice of appeal and you present your case before appeals. And they consider how much is it going to cost the IRS to go to court. At the end of the day, what's another 12 to 18 months if you save yourself 50 grand in the long run, which is, I think that's being conservative.
All right, so we're back, Jordan. So we have an icebreaker for Darren. I'll let you run with it from here. And thanks everybody for jumping on the Mansfield Buzz. Make sure you comment, say hi, like, and all that fun stuff to make our YouTube channel rock.
Yes, because we're back. Because last Thursday, Google decided to.
Yeah. Bye-bye. See you later.
And we kind of need Google, so now listen.
Obviously.
It's going to be a good one. Darren, I'm so excited to have you back. This is definitely going to be a show that people are going to want to share because you're going to give us, I have the list of questions here. I know what we're going to talk about. People are in for a treat. And dude, you know your stuff. Last time you were here.
Yes, he does.
So many good nuggets that I can't wait to dive deep. Now, before we get started, let me just try one thing that I literally just thought about. Can I
Cool.
see if I can.
Oh, he's playing with the screen.
Yes.
And by the way, this is the fun part about being live is we can do this stuff in the studio, right? And Rockstar Inspection says, hello, while we're at it.
John.
While we're at it. Hello, John.
Let's see.
All right. So what are you trying to do, Jordan?
Just trying to get Darren up, get him higher.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right.
When I watch the recordings, I'm looking at our guest screen, and they're at the lower portion of the screen, and I don't like that I'm looking down. So that
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And I forget. Oh man, this brings me back. I used to mess with you all the time, Herdy.
Well, the thing, what we need to explain to people is that there's several different screen settings, Jordan, underneath that where you can pick how you want it to look, right? So I'm wondering if you just pick the single head.
Oh, we have a ton, right? We can.
Yeah, and highlight him, and then we can just be on the side like that. So perfect. Or we can be like that.
It's.
No, I don't like that. So, by the way, we're experimenting on our listening audience today, which is awesome.
I think I broke it, Herdy. Can you go back to the normal one?
Can you go back to the? Yeah, can you? There you go. That was good. There you go. Yeah. So the cool thing is, I bet there's probably 100 screen settings we could go through and utilize depending on how many guests we have. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
All right, let's get into the show. First, we're going to go with our icebreaker. So
I pulled it back up for you.
No, I know this is so. Aaron, apparently your safety word is Japan.
Japan, yeah. So Japan. So I lived in Japan for 3 years growing up. I want to say I was age 9 through age 12.
Wow, cool.
Wow.
But it was a really cool experience. My mom actually taught English at a private school, so she got paid in the currency. My dad was in the military, so we were stationed there, and so we were able to utilize her pay, which was in the currency, so we didn't have to convert money, and go do a lot of cool things that a lot of other Air Force brats didn't get a chance to do. And the owner of the private school happened to be connected, and I mean that in every sense of the word. And so we were able to do things that other Americans weren't able to do. So it was really neat, great experience. I got to experience like all the cartoons, all the anime,
Earthquake,
all the TV shows, the live action TV shows. Power Rangers, I was 9 when I saw Power Rangers. So wow. And listen, I'm 49 now, just so you know.
Right.
A long time ago. But candies, sodas, so many cool things as a child that you get to experience in Japan. So yeah, I lived overseas in different parts of the world. other than the United States for 16 years of my life.
Yeah, I was going to say, as being a part of the military family, that's it does get tiresome, but it sure does get cool to go to different places in the world and be able to talk about it later. So that's awesome.
Yeah, really neat.
Cool. Good icebreaker. Yeah.
Awesome. And what a great age from 9 to 12. Like that is
The best
real
times.
to have access to all that new like environment. That is
very neat. Very neat.
My brother just got back from Japan. He just traveled there for leisure. And just some of the stuff he got to do, like he got to drive go-karts on the street. Like you can actually do that. Get in a go-kart and drive all around the streets in Tokyo.
Yeah.
You can actually like dress up as Mario, so you can like literally play Mario Kart dressed like Mario Kart.
I imagine it's not the same place as it was when I was there. So yeah, there's probably all kinds of cool things.
Yeah.
But it's always like just the creativity there, like it's just next level.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
No doubt.
So Darren, for the people that missed our last show,
yeah,
give us a little bit of your background, and what brought you to the insulation space, and how come you've decided to really take a venture down this path, especially because I know you know your stuff. So there has to be some passion in there as well, because you wouldn't research this nearly as much.
Yeah, so I got into insulation on accident. After Katrina, I was living in New Orleans area, and so after Katrina, you can imagine the hurricane. You can imagine the destruction and then the rebuilding efforts. Yep. And so I went and worked for a company that was doing restoration and mold remediation. And then we went out on our own and started our own company. And then just kind of through a natural evolution of progress, we started to refer a lot of our customers that we did mold remediation and cleaning and drying and treatment on to insulators. Mm-hmm. And spray foam wasn't new 20 years ago. But it was still kind of emerging in Louisiana market. It probably only been in the market 5 or 10 years at that point. And so we were referring a lot of work. And as the mold remediation business naturally started to decline, we needed to supplement our business another direction. And because we were referring so many, we decided it was my company that we would start offering insulation, specifically spray foam insulation. And because we already had a good customer base, a contractor base, it just made good sense to do it that way. So that kind of started my journey on insulation and energy efficiency and building codes and all these crazy things that you should learn if you're going to be in any profession, for any length of time. And so, that led to industry certifications and training classes and all those kind of good things that you do to stay on top of your business and understand your market and kind of how your industry progresses through time.
And who's Obi?
Oh, Obi. So this guy over my shoulder is Obi the koala. Obi's our national mascot. Koala is a national franchise founded in Melbourne, Florida. So that's where they get the name Koala Insulation, like Melbourne, Australia, the koala. And Obi is our mascot. And so you see him on our website and different things, social media and so forth. So Obi is our mascot.
Cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when did you started with Koala Insulation? So
I started with Koala Insulation 2.5, almost 3 years ago, here in the Mansfield, Venus area, and we service a pretty big area from Waxahachie all the way to Maypearl, probably even further than that, south of I-20. So we'll go to Waco, but that's not our preference. But we kind of want to handle the southern part of I-20. Okay. And of course, Mansfield is one of the major, if not the biggest, kind of hubs. I'm Koala of Southeast Arlington, so obviously Arlington is included in that. So that's Arlington, Mansfield, they almost kind of grown together at this point, I think.
Oh yes, I'm in South Arlington, and I go straight over, and actually, a couple streets down, there's some houses whose front yard is Arlington and the backyard is Mansfield.
Yeah. So my office is on the line between Mansfield and Venus. Literally, you step one street. You step on the street and go to the midpoint, and you're in Venus. Otherwise, I'd be in Mansfield. So
they literally grew together. That's cool.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that we had 3 people that lived 1 foot from the next city? I'm one a fence post away from Grand Prairie.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That just goes to show you the area has been growing by leaps and bounds. Obviously,
Yeah.
as you see this, all this new construction pop
Just
up.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go into. So I'm surprised actually. You mentioned foam insulation, and it's great. Like I thought it was a pretty new thing, but apparently it's not. So it's been around for a little bit longer than I thought. And I'd love to get your expertise on it because apparently you've been working on it for a while. So indoctrinate us. Tell us more about foam insulation.
Yeah, so spray foam insulation is not new. It's actually been around, I think, for the better part of like 75 years.
Wow.
In mostly industrial, commercial applications. And then I'm going to say, and listen, don't quote me to any of this because I'm probably wrong, but I know for a fact that it's been used in the residential application for more than 30 years. Florida really kind of was a spray foam capital of the nation for a long, long time. And they utilized it not for only comfort and utility bill reduction, but also for hurricane protection, because a roof that has been spray foamed with a closed cell spray foam insulation is actually stronger than a roof that doesn't have it.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of applications to spray foam insulation, from insulating your refrigerator to, I mean, you name it. And there's all kinds of applications for spray foam, and it's not necessarily spray foam, but polyurethane foam. It just so happens we call it spray foam because we spray it into the cavities of the building structure. But spray foam's been around a long time and has proven itself over time, and it's changed a little bit over time in terms of how it's produced, who produces it, the chemicals that are in it. We've been on this journey in America to make things more environmentally friendly. I think probably just the world, and so there's been a lot of changes in that respect too. But the effectiveness of the spray foam has maintained itself fairly well across the decades.
That's pretty cool. And so you've seen have you seen an increase in spray foam insulation applications here in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, across the nation, frankly. As technology matures, typically you'll see a reduction in costs, right? And so it becomes more available, more accessible, especially if it's a very viable product. We kind of see that with electronics and other things as well. As technology kind of gets better, things tend to get cheaper. Although we've been a little flat in terms of cost probably over the last 10 years, but in general, it's more acceptable. But not only that, people will become more aware of it. And so the awareness plays a big part in the adoptability of the product in a construction kind of project. So spray foam it's probably hands down the best insulation there is in terms of effectiveness, as it relates to comfort and utility savings. There's really nothing better that you can do, although there are a lot of alternatives.
Yeah. Is it, and I don't know if this is true or not, so don't quote me on that one either, but aren't Yeti coolers made with foam insulation?
Yeah. All the Yeti coolers, like I said, your refrigerator, I mean, all that has some type of polyurethane foam in it. And it works. What makes spray foam or polyurethane foam so good is that it works consistently across temperatures. So the hottest of the hot or the coldest of the cold, it tends to perform equally within those environments, so it's just great. I mean, if anybody's had a Yeti cooler or any of the knockoffs, you know that it keeps that ice cold, right? Or
absolutely.
Using it to heat, it keeps the heat in.
I know this house, they used spray foam all on the periphery of the house. And I remember when they finished, the guy that came by just said, I remember it was like, as he was finishing up and I just kind of closed the door, it's like, man, you guys are going to enjoy this. I'm like, why? He's like, because you basically just turn your house into a Yeti cooler. I was like, that's a nice thought.
Yep. That's essentially what you have. On the new construction side, people always think new constructions, you can do spray foam insulation.
Mhm.
They may not think that if they have an existing home, they can use spray foam insulation, but they can. But on the new construction side, the beauty of spray foam insulation is that you can spray foam your home and roll that cost into your mortgage, right? And immediately be on a positive ROI, meaning you can actually pay for every cent that you put into spray foam insulation within 3 to 5 years of owning the home, meaning you got all your money back in utility savings. And so that's beautiful. You can't do that with anything in your home. You can't do it with your windows. You can't do maybe with your windows, but it's a longer payback. But your doors, your drywall, no other building material that you put in is going to give you an ROI in 3 to 5 years. Hell, you can barely get that with an investment, honestly.
And Darren, I would think that a lot of people don't think that way. They think in terms, oh, that's just too long term. But think about that. Investment, that word investment means long term, right? In a good way. So you're talking about a price up front, but you're talking about a very large or medium or good, whatever you want to use the word, great payoff after 3 to 4 years. I mean, especially if somebody's going to be in a home past 5, 6 years in that home, they're going to start recovering from that. So making these good decisions up front helps in the long term. To me, that's just super beneficial.
This has been a fight. I've been fighting this fight for as long as I've been in the business, which is almost 20 years. People will very quickly pay $10,000 for a front door. Beautiful front door.
That's a good analogy.
$10,000 on insulation and get every bit of that back in 3 to 5 years, right? It baffles my mind. But out of sight, out of mind is typically what we see with insulation, because it truly is that. You don't see it, you forget about it. And so the only time you think about it is when we have these extreme temperatures, very cold or very hot. I think what did we talk about, Herdy? I think we're in heat index over 100 degrees today.
103 index today, and we're going to be in the 90s all week. So this is when that starts to show up, right?
We'll that
not a good enough installation in the attic, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's when people tend to call. They can't keep their home cool. When they get home at 5, it takes till 8 before their house gets cool, or they have a room that never gets cool, or their bill's high, and it becomes this big need. So summertime tends to be pretty busy for us.
Is spray application hard, or is it relatively easy, or do they have to leave the house when it's being done and let it settle? What's the process? That's what I
Yeah. So on a new construction, obviously nobody lives there. We can get in and get out pretty quickly, and they can kind of go through. The time it gets occupied, spray foam is fine. On an existing home, there are some precautions and things that you need to do to, I guess, qualify. That word is kind of loaded, but to qualify for spray foam insulation. And one of those things is your air conditioning system or your heating system or even your water heater.
Right.
So with spray foam insulation on an existing home, we're basically, Jordan, you talked about that ice chest kind of analogy.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing to the attic space is we're sealing the attic space off completely from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning we have now made that attic space an ice chest, right? And when we do that, we stop that air movement from the interior to the exterior, or vice versa, from the exterior to the interior. And so if we have gas appliances in the attic space, there has to be some additional steps that you have to take.
Absolutely.
For safety reasons.
Yes.
That's mainly because we want, when that furnace fires and it's gas, or the hot water heater fires and it's gas, we wanted to get enough oxygen to burn cleanly so that we don't have any carbon monoxide there. So people ask this question pretty regularly. Can I spray foam my attic with gas appliances? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is it takes additional work. Now, that opinion may not be shared amongst some of my peers, but it is acceptable and doable. A lot of HVAC contractors don't like to modify the systems so that you can get spray foam insulation. So you have to find a really good HVAC contractor who understands spray foam and the effects they have and or not. Because most HVAC contractors that I've run across would rather say, no, you can't do it. You need to change out your unit to this. And that's always an acceptable solution.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Quite often. It does
to be
happen.
an expensive way.
Yeah. But there are things you can do. And code doesn't restrict it. It really becomes more of a, is your contractor qualified enough to make those adjustments?
Sure.
Yeah.
Now that's on the gas side. So is my house qualified for spray foam insulation? The answer is 95% of the homes are. Some homes have to be modified to be able to get spray foam insulation. But I would say that in Texas, we have more electrified homes, more electric furnaces, heat pump furnaces, and water heaters than not. So we have a lot more electricity in Texas than we would say in Louisiana, where natural gas might be a little more abundant. But we still see that pretty regularly. So we talked about spray foam insulation and spraying the attic. I'd like to kind of walk through the process.
Sure.
Of what we look for when we go into an attic, and then what needs to happen, or what happens from the time someone says, yes, we like spray foam, to the time we install it, and so forth. Can we go through that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I would like you to hook the audience with some of the sweet stuff, because you did mention drops on utility bills, but do you know how much somebody could actually like project, or can I get an idea of what they're like, what kind of a change they're going to be looking at?
Yeah. So, I always tell my customers, on average, most of my customers see a 20 to 30% reduction in utility costs,
Wow.
which is pretty significant. On a new construction home, you're almost starting at that 50% mark, just because the house is going to be so tight and so efficient. That's why you get that 3 to 5 year kind of payoff on a new construction versus a retrofit is what we call it. And because the dollars cost less when you add it to your mortgage versus paying for it out of pocket or even getting a home improvement loan. So, there's that to think about as well. But I would say 20 to 30%. I've had customers call me and say, Darren, my bill was cut in half. That's real story. I've seen it. It's crazy. But on average, I would say 20 to 30%. But listen, when it comes to comfort, and it comes to, mainly comfort, people pay for comfort. And so, there's been insulation contractors in Texas since the beginning of time. This is the first time we built, and people will pay somebody to come in and add insulation to their attic, whether they get the return or not, just to be comfortable in their home. So, that we still see that regularly, and it just makes good sense. Nobody wants to come home after working and you're not cooling your own house.
That's awesome. That is, and I can speak from experience. We're at 100 degrees right now. I'm cold. It's cold in here.
Yeah. So some other additional benefits. You say you're cold in your house and it's spray foam insulated. One of the great things about sealing off your attic space from the outside is you're reducing the amount of air exchanges in the home, meaning the outside air is not able to infiltrate the house as often as it would normally do under normal circumstances. There's always this exchange of air. And so we're able to reduce that exchange of air in the attic. And in our Texas heat, we're also able to reduce our humidity levels. So if not only can we reduce the amount of air that's exchanging between the inside and outside, but we're also to reduce the amount of humidity. And so what does that mean for us as humans? It means that at 60% relative humidity, we may have to set our thermostat at 72 degrees to feel comfortable. If we can drop that humidity even a few percentage points, but let's get it to 50% relative humidity, we can actually increase our thermostat to 74 and feel the same comfort as 72.
Oh, wow.
Now you have an air conditioning.
And that's huge.
Huge.
That's huge.
that's where you see those real savings, because now you don't have to run your unit as often for us to feel comfortable in the home. So humidity plays a big part in human comfort, and spray foam is able to also affect that, which affects how often your AC runs and so forth and so on.
Okay, so now that people are listening to us, like, man, that sounds pretty nice. Actually, I'd like to.
What's the
I'd like
process?
to blankets at night in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
So
So the process is relatively painless. Herdy asked the question earlier, do we have to leave the home? And so we'll kind of walk through it. First, when we go into a house to evaluate it for spray foam insulation, there are several things we look for. First, we have to look for, is it the attic accessible? Can we actually do the work safely? Because that's priority, right? Like worker safety is priority. Can we do it safely and not do a poor job, right? And we've been in some really tight attics where I would tell a customer, listen, we can't do it in your home. We have some alternatives. Here's the alternatives, and give them some options. But spray foam is just not a good option for you because of worker safety, or because I can't guarantee that I can get you the results that you're looking for because of access.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so first and foremost, I'm going to always be honest with you about whether you can have it or not. That may not always be the case with insulation contractors, but in general, the good ones, and there are some good ones, and there's some that have been in Mansfield for 20 plus years. I have several friends in the industry in the area who've been doing good work for a long time. And so there are good contractors out there. Mm-hmm. But in general, we want to make sure that it's safe and that we're going to meet or exceed expectations of the customer. Let's say that the attic is adequate, and let's just say that they don't have gas furnace, but they have electric furnace.
Mm-hmm.
So then we really start, walking the customer through the process, which is first and foremost, we're going to remove all of your existing insulation off of the ceiling. We're going to get rid of it. We no longer need that insulation on the ceiling. And they're like, well, why would you do that? Well, it's because instead of the exterior of the home starting at the ceiling of the house, the exterior of the home is going to start at the pitch of the roof.
Gotcha.
All right. So that's going to be our.
We think about it, for those of us that are not familiar with that, you would think that the exterior of the house is where the roof is, but for insulation purposes, the exterior of the house starts with when you get on the attic and you see all that foam, like that is, now you're technically outside of the house.
That's right. So on a traditional home, and we're going to talk about ventilation a little bit later, but let's stick to spray foam. So on a traditional home, your attic is ventilated, meaning it is susceptible to the outside air. As a matter of fact, we want that exchange of air in the attic space. And so your perimeter now is the ceiling and your exterior walls. That's the perimeter of your home. When we do spray foam, we move that perimeter to the roof line, and it's no longer at the ceiling. So now your attic space is actually part of your living space. It becomes semi-conditioned. So we want to remove all the insulation off the ceiling so that we get that air that migrates up, the conditioned air migrates up into the attic space. Because it's spray foam and sealed off from the outside, that air just sits up there nice and cool. And what else is in your attic, Jordan and Herdy, that fights the heat?
My Christmas decorations.
Stuff.
Yeah, your Christmas decorations, all your wax figures that are now melted, your air conditioning system, right?
Stuff.
So, if your AC has to fight 130-degree attic on a traditionally ventilated
it's always
attic,
running. It's always running.
Always running. But if we can drop that temperature now to 10 or 15 degrees different from your living space, or let's just say 90 degrees, you can imagine the efficiency that your AC gets by not having to fight an additional 30 or 40 degrees of heat. And now all the insulation around your ducts, all the air that's coming into your home is more efficient, is cooler. We're reducing the amount of humidity. Now your AC doesn't run as often. And so you see this kind of cyclical effect of bringing that AC into a cool environment. That's the value. That's the bang for your buck. That's the rubber that meets the road. All those sayings that you say, that is the value of spray foam that no other insulation can give you.
Yeah. Which is it's a smarter design. Like that makes total sense. Like now the machine is not sitting in, for all intents and purposes, outside.
Yeah. That works in every climate zone. So it not only works in our hot zones, but it also works in the cold zones, north of the Mason-Dixon line, in the west, northwest, where it gets really cold. Same thought process. In the wintertime here, in Texas, it can get really cold. We've experienced that. And so, a lot of times,
I think so.
Yeah, a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I've had customers call me and say, I never even had to put my heater on, right? Because we're maintaining this temperature, this comfortability, having to kick the heater on, or my heater kicked on once today, right? I get those kind of comments pretty regularly.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, a little trick for you guys to do in the wintertime. And I was reminded of this. I had a customer who was from Texas, moved to Colorado, had spray foam in Colorado, and moved back to Texas recently and wanted to get her new house spray foam insulated. He said, Darren, most of the houses are spray foamed in Colorado, and I know this because the snow stays on the roof all day. So in the wintertime in Texas, when we get that heavy frost, look at your neighbor's roofs. If your neighbor's roofs still have frost on it, after, let's just say, 9 o'clock, the likelihood of them having spray foam is pretty high. If you look at a neighbor and it's all melting, it's probably a naturally venting attic space.
Yeah.
That's how well it insulates.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now I have now I can flex with my neighbors. It's like, you have spray foam insulation. I can
now,
you can see it. If I'm driving the neighborhoods, I can go, oh, that house has foam on it. You can really see it, unless it's getting direct sunlight. But you get the gist of it. So that's so the process. Then let's continue the process. We're going to remove all the insulation, get rid of it. We no longer need it. If it's a fiberglass batten material, like what they call the Pink Panther stuff, the bats that you would normally see, like rolled up in Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yep.
We'll remove that. Get rid of it by hand, bag it up, get it out of there. If it's the blown-in type insulation, which we have a lot of in Texas, and it can be a lot of different materials. It can be fiberglass, it can be mineral wool, it can be cellulose. We're going to suck all that out with a vacuum. A big vacuuming hose. Guys are going to get up there and just suck it all out and get rid of that insulation because we no longer need it in the ceiling. We want that exchange of air between the attic space and the living space. Once that's done, then we typically will disinfect the attic with what we call Attic Fresh, which is an enzymatic disinfectant. And why not? You're sucking out all this old stuff. You might as well just kind of start from scratch. It's a deodorizer on top of that. It just makes sense to do at that moment. If there's anything that is missed, for whatever reason, it's going to be neutralized, because it is an attic. We are in Texas. There likely was a bug or a rodent or something in the attic at some point.
Something that there at some point. I mean,
At some point, it likely is there. So we'll get rid of all that. Then at that point, we're ready to spray foam the roof line of the attic. One of the other things we do when we evaluate a home is we evaluate whether or not you have an attached garage. Do you have a porch under roof? All those things, because our goal when we spray foam insulate a home is to seal off the living space from the outside. A porch is not necessarily living space. A garage is not necessarily living space. But a lot of times we can't separate those areas off adequately. So we include them in the total envelope of your attic. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt it. It may add a little cost because you have more square footage, but the end result is going to be a nice tight attic that is not susceptible to the outside air anymore. And so we're looking for those type of things. Some people have garages that we can separate with the wall and spray that wall, and the garage stays, uninsulated. But most people are like, well, no, I go out in my garage, or I have my washing machine in my garage, or hey, I have this hobby that I do in my garage. Is it going to help the heat in my? Yeah, absolutely. It'll help the heat.
I'd be like, yo, how much is in my garage? Because that sounds cool.
Right. And so in those situations, it makes good sense to go ahead and insulate the garage. And so we not only do the top parts of those garages and porches, but we also do the flats because we're stopping that outside air from coming up into the attic space. So when you open up your garage door, you don't want a rush of air to go up into this nice cool attic.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the other evaluating part of it. And so people always ask me, Darren, why do you have to remove the insulation in the ceiling when you do spray foam insulation? And I already talked about this, but the whole point and really the main reason is we don't want your AC system to start to sweat. We don't want your ACs and ducts to hit dew point. So we want to cool that attic off as fast as possible so that we don't get moisture on those AC systems. That's why we remove the insulation, so we can ensure that that space gets cool fast enough. And that's one of the main reasons why we do it.
Okay.
So Darren, so one thing you mentioned was the savings on utilities for spray foam, but you don't have in your questions. I just want to get this out there and see if I'm on the right page. Is there any kind of government incentives right now on this type of service?
Yeah, so there is a tax credit called the 25C Energy Efficiency Tax Credit. It is 30% up to $1,200.
Wow.
That that may not be here next year. We do not know. Obviously, all those tax credits and stuff are in Congress, and they're going to make some decisions on those. But that particular tax credit has been around for the better part of 20 or 25 years, maybe longer, in different iterations. Used to be lifetime. Currently, it's every time you do an upgrade, you have the 30% up to $1,200. But I would say that if you're putting off insulation, do it now so that make sure you get your 30% tax credit up to $1,200. So there definitely is.
Okay.
There's also some utility programs out there, depending on your electricity company, that offer some rebates here and there.
Oh, cool.
And go on their websites and Google them, or just search for them, and they'll give it to you. Sometimes it's $150. Sometimes it can be up to $1,000. Just depends on your utility program.
Okay.
So yeah, Herdy, there's some incentives out there for you. All right. So once the insulation is removed off the ceiling, and we've evaluated where your porches and your garages are, then we actually start applying the spray foam insulation to the roof deck. And we do that in a 5.5 to 6 inch thickness. So we go all the way down to the top plate of your walls, where your walls meet your roof, and we start to seal up all those open areas all the way up to the top of the roof. Whether you have a ridge vent, a whirlybird, a power fan, doesn't really matter. We're going to seal that up. And there are some things we do to get those sealed up properly. But in general, we're going to seal up that entire roof. And when you look in your attic and you put the light on, it's not going to be dark anymore. You're going to see, Jordan, you know this because you've been in your attic. You get that light, that light's going to bounce off of every surface of that foam, and it's going to be a nice bright attic, clean, cool, and you don't have to really worry about things. So it's a great process and great for our climate. So Herdy asked, well, what do you have to leave the house when we're spraying the foam? And I always tell my customers, do not go into the attic space within 24 hours of us applying the spray foam insulation. Because there will be some residual smell, if you will, for lack of a technical term. While we're spraying foam, we're ventilating the attic space. So while we're actually applying the spray foam, we're literally producing plastic in your attic and applying it to your roof deck. While we're doing that, we're also ventilating the attic space to reduce the amount of smell and VOCs that are there. My guys are in full respirators, but there is a ceiling between the living space and the attic space, and that really kind of stops the majority of the VOCs from coming into the living space anyway. And so I always tell my customers there is a smell associated with it. If you're chemically sensitive, or you have elderly or very young children, it's probably best to give yourself 24 hours before you come back in the home. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can do it, great. I get it. Some people can't. Most people can. And that's probably a better option. But it's not 100% necessary if you're ventilating properly during the application process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of spray foam in a nutshell.
You've sprayed foam, 24 hours goes away, and now you'll have a nice cool home.
Yeah. That 24 hours also helps acclimate that attic space to the living space, right? To the temperature. So you actually start to get that cool attic, and it just makes it that much better. So John with Rock Darn Inspections, I love inspecting condition attics. Yeah, because they're nice and cool, right?
Yeah.
Because they're nice and cool. The other thing that most people don't realize is your air conditioner, whether it's new or not, is leaking into the attic. It is 100% leaking. New ACs are not required to be 100% sealed. And it's hard to get them 100% sealed. So you're already conditioning your attic, but you're not seeing it because you have all this hot air being exchanged. When you spray foam it, all that cool air that you would normally lose in leaking, it's actually helped to condition the attic space.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just makes it a smarter system. That's really cool.
It's a smarter system. That's exactly right.
One thing that I wanted to touch upon a little bit more, because you already covered it, but just for the people that are listening to, and there's some obvious advantages to this. But let's say you do have the gas cooling. What should you expect?
Yeah, it's a great question, and like I said, you're going to get a multitude of opinions about this if you're getting multiple quotes, which I always encourage people to do. But essentially, what we want to do is we want to provide enough air to be able to fire cleanly, and we want to provide enough air for the system to not be choked off, so it's working efficiently.
Exactly.
So there's two things we're really looking for. We're looking for what we call combustion air and makeup air. And so a good AC guy, and listen, you can throw a lot of money at this to get both of those two things. You can get a lot of bells and whistles, or you can go very basic. Right. So let's just talk about very basically. Combustion air is nothing but outside air. So we would bring an HVAC contractor would bring outside air to the furnace, or even not necessarily connected into the furnace, but by the furnace. So when it fires, it's drawing that outside air to get combustion. The reality of the fact is most attics have enough CFM of air to do that anyway. But I like to err on the side of caution, very conservative in that respect. And so that HVAC contractor will bring in combustion air. The makeup air is air that goes directly into your unit. And so that means that you're getting enough air over your air conditioning coil so that you can condition, dehumidify the air sufficiently. We're not choking off the attic space or the attic air from the AC system. And so we're reducing its efficiency. We don't want to do that. We want to have enough air over those coils to maintain the efficiency. The whole point is to reduce your utility bill. And so I always recommend to my customers, if they have gas appliances, combustion air, and then for the AC, makeup air. And that can be done a multitude of ways with a multitude of options. I've seen people add dehumidifiers, bringing outside air into a dehumidifier before they bring it into the unit. I've seen it on butterfly switches, so it stays closed until it kicks on and opens up and allows the air to come. There's so many different things you can do. But in general, those are the things we're looking for whenever we have gas appliances.
Okay.
So what does that do to cost, though, Jordan?
Yeah.
It adds anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a unit.
Okay.
Does that mean you have to reroute some of the gas piping up there too, so you don't cover it? Or is it just more of the ventilation, like you said? It's more of making sure it can exchange the air one way or the other, right?
Yeah. So it does. It sometimes it may require a roof jack.
Which is fine, but it's more about the ventilation. It's more about the air in and out. Okay, gotcha.
So it does. It can require additional ventilation that's jacked to your roof, jacked out of your roof. It could do that. So. But on average, $1,000 to $1,500, $1,200 to $1,500 additional cost.
Yeah. Well, if you have to, you have to.
Well, it's good to know.
If you really want it.
It's not a lot compared to the value of the house, though, either. So, right.
Or to replace your unit with a high efficiency, unit.
Yeah.
Go do
that.
Yeah. $15,000 later, whatever.
Go do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of 1,500, it's 15,000. No biggie.
Right.
Yeah. So,
There's always a solution. It's just whether or not someone knows.
what was that statement back in that old auto ad? Pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah. So there are some things. There are some that's additional costs, and I always tell my customers up front, listen, there are insulation contractors out there in our area who will spray foam an attic with gas appliances and not say a word, never even mention it. And those,
sound right.
Luckily, those are few and far between. I think the majority of people are honest, want to do right by the customer. And there's some really good contractors out there besides me that will do the right thing. But there are also guys out there who just want to make a quick buck.
And that might be typical in just about any business we're in today.
Any business in any location in the nation, right?
That's right. That's right.
Or you get on the flip side where they don't know or they don't feel comfortable with it, and just to avoid the hassle, will tell you that it's just not possible.
So
yeah, for sure. And I'll be honest with you, I'd rather someone say no, we can't do it.
Yeah. Well, it's what happened here because we have a gas furnace. So when we built this house, we were told we could not use foam insulation on the ceiling because it was a gas furnace. Now I know that that's actually not the case. They just didn't want to deal with the piping of the air. So we have foam insulation all around the house, but the ceiling is the blown-in insulation.
Yeah, and that's exactly right.
So Darren, with us going into the high temperatures right now, can you kind of spit out some of the typical questions you get asked right now? What comes in on a phone call? My temperature has gone up in my house. The air is not as cool as it was before coming out of the vent. What sort of classic, I guess what I'm asking for is classic symptoms that their installation is not doing the job in the attic.
Yeah. So as we just started getting hot, so I would say that a lot of my customers have already kind of have gotten insulation or been calling about insulation kind of preemptive to the
right.
The good for them. But insulation, like I said before, tends to be out of sight, out of mind until it becomes front of mind, right? Mm-hmm. And so the questions that we typically get now are, hey, I got a new AC and it still can't keep up. I get that question quite a bit.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Or I had my AC serviced,
right,
and my AC guy says I need more insulation.
So you got a helping hand there.
I do, and I do have some good HVAC partners who will get my name out. But that comes quite often. That question comes quite often. Is that they're hot in their house? Well, let's break it down. Let's kind of distill why. They're uncomfortable in their home. They call the AC guy because the AC is not working. AC guy goes out there and says, no, your air conditioner is working. You need more insulation so it can work better. That's what I see quite a bit of, Ernie.
Hey, good to know. Okay.
And so comfort is a major factor, and then utility bill after that. So once we get that high utility bill, first hot month of the year, I'll start getting those calls going, hey, I need to do something for this utility bill. And so comfort really pushes them, and then utility bill is secondary to that. And so they're always asking for options. And not everybody wants spray foam. Mm-hmm. So there are other options. But I would say in general, let's kind of take spray foam and set it aside for right now. In general, what I see from a traditionally ventilated attic, which is going to be your majority of the homes, is I see a lack of ventilation. Mm-hmm. And when I say ventilation, I mean attic ventilation. So remember, our ACs are in the attic. Our insulation is in the attic, right? And so if we can get the attic temperature as close to the outside temperature as possible through this exchange of air, then both the insulation in your ceiling and the insulation around your AC ducts are going to work better, more efficiently. You're going to be cooler in your house, and hopefully your AC will start to cycle normally. So ventilation is super important, and I see it being one of the biggest, if not the biggest factor in the houses that I see on a regular basis.
Go ahead, Jordan. I'm sorry. I think you were going down the same road as me.
Yeah, what happens when there's inadequate ventilation? Is the attic become hotter than the outside?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what happens if you're not getting a good exchange of air
Wow.
is that your attic starts to get superheated throughout the day, right? So it starts out relatively cool from the night. And as you go through the day into the hardest part of the day, which is 3 or 4 o'clock, right? Your attic is not getting rid of the heat fast enough. And so it's just sitting on top of your ceilings and your AC ducts. That's why it takes sometimes into 7 or 8 o'clock before you can start to cool off, because you're not ventilated properly. That happens regularly. And listen, I see this not just on old homes. As a matter of fact, I would make a blanket statement and say that most older homes are better ventilated than the brand new homes. So like if you're driving around a new neighborhood, and we have a lot of them, you'll see these little squares sitting on top of the roofs. Maybe you'll see 6 or 7 of them.
Right.
Those are what we call static vents. And they're only about yay big openings. They move about 65 CFM of air each on average, whereas one solar attic fan will move 1,550 CFM of air. So even if you have 10 of those up there, one solar or one mechanical ventilation fan is going to double or triple if you have 6 or 8 or 10 of them up there. And so because our building codes are not driven by the hot climates, they're driven by the cold climates, those little vents meet code.
Really?
Yeah. And so I have added solar attic fans to new houses where they have adequate insulation, and it's made a big difference on their comfort and utility bill. Every house that I go out and evaluate insulation on, I evaluate ventilation as well, because it is, I'm going to say this very boldly, it is just as important as insulation. Ventilation is just as important as insulation. You can have 1,000 inches of insulation and no ventilation, and it's going to be fighting that heat all day long, and you're going to notice it.
Wow. Yeah. And imagine the wear and tear that heat does over a long period of time too. You know.
Yeah. So what does the heat do? What does that cause, Hurdy? What kind of damage? It causes damage to your AC system. So your AC system is under extreme heat stress.
Or a water heater if it's up
there.
Or
water heater, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, right.
Your actual roof shingles
melt,
will start to blister and get damaged.
Yeah.
So your roof becomes less durable. And so with our hail, hail will damage a roof that's not ventilated properly worse than it would damage a roof that has good ventilation.
Yeah.
So ventilation affects not just your insulation and comfort and utility bill, but it affects the longevity of your AC.
So you're almost saying that somebody with a single vent fan is going to be in better shape than putting up these little small square discs on the roof that just don't have a way to process the air out fast enough, correct? So yeah.
I would say make this statement, Hurdy. I would say that mechanical ventilation
is a better way to go. Yeah.
Will far exceed what we call passive ventilation. And that would be the little squares on the roof or the little whirly birds that spin.
Yep.
That's still passive because it requires the heat to rise or the wind to spin them. Yes, you're better off.
You see those on old houses, you know. I mean, my grandparents had a couple of those.
And they work better.
And a lot of times they even had rooms in the attic because they could actually go in the attic and hang out because they had the ventilation fans, right? Yeah.
Cool. That's why I made the statement that older homes are ventilated better than newer homes because they had whirly birds.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because each whirly bird moves about 250 CFM of air.
So this insulation business to me it sounds very scientific. As I sit here and listen to you, Darren, you know, it's old school, right? But we take it for granted. And I think what the problem, at least I've discovered a problem is somebody is too lazy to go up their attic and see their insulation's either crumpled down and it's not very thick, you know, so it's out of sight, out of mind, right? So it's one of those things until you remind them, they don't go look at it or till problems start happening like we've been discussing.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay. I have a question, a practical one. So right now we're getting to the hundreds. And let's say we have a ventilated attic. What is the highest acceptable temperature that attic should get?
Well, that's all going to depend on climate. But like
Very
I
hot.
don't know if there is an acceptable temperature, Jordan.
It just gets very hot.
It just gets
Well,
hot.
the reason I'm asking is if you want to like just get an idea if you have proper like ventilation or not. Right now we're at 100 degrees. You know, like around 4 o'clock, go up there with a thermometer and see how hot it is. And if it's 100 degrees outside, but you're like sitting at 160 inside, then I would imagine your attic is in trouble.
Yeah.
So
It
I'm
is.
wondering, like, when is that breaking point? You're like, whoa, dude, you're way too hot.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of even science behind ventilation, Herdy, even outside of that. And so I would say that, and this is just me talking, if you're 20 to 30 degrees hotter in your attic than the outside, you probably don't have enough ventilation.
Yeah, it just makes total sense because it should balance as much as possible unless there's other things you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean, I would say attics in Texas can get 150 degrees.
So I build a house, or I've had an older house, Darren, and I put a good solid layers of the pink stuff up there, right? And it's nice and it looks good. And then about 15 years later, 10 years later, what happens to insulation over a long period of time?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think every type of insulation and the age of the insulation plays a factor in that. So I would say generally cellulose insulation, which is newspaper that has been chopped and treated with different chemicals, one to help it stop breaking down because it is paper, and one to keep it fire resistant. I personally believe that it's very susceptible to our humidity, and moisture tends to compress stuff over time.
Right.
And so it's an amazing insulator, but I think it's very susceptible to our humidity. And so I think over time, it compresses the insulation. Compressed insulation is insulation that's not working as well as it should.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze.
Well, we'll let you. So we'll take this break and we'll be right back after this,
Yeah.
after this sneeze brought to you by Darren.
So insulation requires air to meet its R value or its resistance value, resistance to heat. So when you compress insulation, you reduce R value. And so over time, because of humidity and gravity, all insulation will tend to compress over time. But I would say in general, if you were to insulate your house properly today, which in Texas is an R38, which with fiberglass is between 13 and 14 inches, that you shouldn't have to re-insulate the home for 15 to 20 years.
And how thick is R38 and how deep is it?
Between 13 and 14 inches.
Okay.
You've got to remember that even 10 years ago, in some areas of the country, 6 inches of insulation was met code. Because energy was very cheap in the 70s and 80s, insulation was not a priority because who cares if the AC ran all day? Because your power was so cheap. Now power is very expensive.
Absolutely.
And we don't want it to run very often, which is why the government has come up with these different R values by climate.
Okay.
And every state adopts a code, a year code that they want to. So we just adopted, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think Texas just adopted 2024 in January. No, I think maybe 2022 in January last year.
Mhm.
Louisiana, I know, is still in the 2022 code, and there's other states are still in 19. And so, 38 is going to be adequate for a long time. 49 would probably be the max amount of insulation I would add to an attic in our climate, which is between 17 and 18 inches. After that, you start to lose your return on your investment.
Okay.
And I have a question for you that we haven't talked about. We kind of danced around it for a second because you mentioned what do we keep in our attic and junk. What happens when we put flooring on the attic to make more room for our junk and compress that insulation?
Yeah, so you can only get the R value that you've compressed that insulation to. So people like to keep stuff in their attic. On a traditionally ventilated attic, the correct way to do that is to build up your decking to be able to allow the insulation levels to be at 13 or 14. Nobody does that, or very few people do it. They put it right on top of the stud, which is a 2x6, and now you've taken that 38
Jordan,
and got it down to maybe a 19.
what's wrong, Jordan? You hit a little nerve there, buddy?
Uh-oh. So, all right, you actually gave us the value. So, if you put decking on your attic and compressed insulation, what was that? What does it do to the numbers?
Maybe half. It's gonna half it, or it's gonna bring it down to the maximum R value per the thickness, which on a 2x6 is an R19.
So you go from an R
38 or 30, depending on when your house was built, to a 19.
Wow.
So you're cutting what's it supposed to do by almost half.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that equates to money out of your pocket over a long period of time. HV repairs more frequent, all the stuff that goes along with what heat and cold does.
So if you're one of those heavy Christmas decorators or heavy Halloween decorators, and you know who you are,
Jordan,
you totally compress your insulation.
right? And Jordan, with all that AI you use, think about how much power you're using in your house, man. No, I'm kidding.
But now let me ask you the flip side of that. So if we, are heavy decorators that like to put like 16-foot skeletons out on the front yard, all that gets stored in the attic. If you put foam insulation, then did you effectively just clear up all that space for storage?
Technically, yes. Technically, yes. There's supposed to be some limit. Yes. So I'll answer to your question, Jordan, because I don't want to get too specific. Is now you can store those items in a cool environment. That's correct.
That's an argument there. That's really interesting. I know I extended the decking over the garage to be able to store all our Christmas stuff. Yeah, and that wasn't insulated. And when you talked about insulating the garage, it's like, man, it'd be nice to insulate the garage because it's pretty hot in there. And it's like, oh, would I have to move the decking?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the bottom line today is, I would think that people should take a quick look at their attic if they're in this area, right? The area of service, and let Darren come out. Now, Darren, one thing I want to clarify is your process for coming out. Is there a fee for them? Is there a fee for you to come out first time, or you go out and help them evaluate what's going on? All they have to do is call you and contact you on the website right here, right?
Yep. You can call and you can book an appointment, or you can call us, and it's all free attic evaluations. You don't charge to do it.
Why would you pass that up?
Yep.
Why not? Why not have somebody come out and look at that and tell you what's going on and give you some evaluations? Because that can be something you can plan long term and start doing short term stuff too, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If let's say you're lacking ventilation and insulation, you can do insulation this year and ventilation next year, as long as you're starting to address the issues.
Well, Darren,
independent of us.
Darren's in our network group, and he is really good at what he does. I mean, man, you heard him talking to science today, and you heard him. He's been doing this a long time. Experience, Darren, matters. It always does in any field, and you've got it, so that's great. Is there any final thoughts today?
Final thought for me is don't wait until you start to realize you need insulation. Be proactive throughout the year. The cooler it is, the easier it is for us to get the work done. And but just in general, it's going to help you long term. The longer you wait, you're literally leaving dollar bills on the table. You might as well be burning them.
That's right. If you put in wood flooring in your attic to store stuff, Jordan.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for being part of the Mansfield Buzz. We are on every Thursday from 2 to 3. And Darren, we love having you on, especially at these different, and it's no coincidence that we have Darren on in June going into late June and July, because these are our months coming up where you're going to feel a difference on your AC unit running a lot longer. And this is the time to take advantage of taxes and take advantage of pricing and things going on in the market. So I want to welcome
everybody. I tell you what, I've got a little special. If you mention the Mansfield Buzz, you'll get $450 off on any insulation project that you bring to me.
Wow.
Can I post that in the description if they listen to the show and see this discount? and they go to your website and mention the Mansfield Buzz.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay. We love that. Yay.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right, guys. Thank you for being part of the Mansfield Buzz. Darren, thank you for being a part of this and getting on with us today. I know you've been through some stuff this week. We're thinking about you, and just so you know that, okay? And we appreciate you still taking the time out to come on and join us on the Buzz. Jordan, thanks for your great expertise on asking the questions and keeping it subtle and keeping the freight train Hurdy Burke off the rails there. That's good. So y'all have a good
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We love you, man. We'll see y'all next Thursday. Y'all have a great day, and welcome to, and we'll see you on the Mansfield Buzz next week.
Bye, y'all.